Republican Ohio Senator and Senate Foreign Relations Committee member Rob Portman joining me now. Senator, good afternoon and great to have you today. We also have some headlines crossing through Reuters from the Taiwan presidential office saying that President Tsai will meet with Pelosi Wednesday morning at the presidential office before having lunch with her. Many members of the GOP and also national security experts praising her trip and not backing down to China's threats, saying that absolutely no concessions should be given to China. Your reaction to what we saw this morning?
Jackie, I couldn't agree more. I don't agree with Speaker Pelosi on much, and on this one I think she's absolutely right. I was there just a few months ago in Taiwan. It was a very productive meeting. We talked about the military issue, obviously, and what Taiwan needs to better defend itself. And that was important, but also we talked about the economic situation. As you know, 90% of the high-end semiconductors in the world are made in Taiwan. These are the chips that we depend on for our military, for our automobiles, for so many of our electronics. So it's a very important country in many respects, but one is, as we've seen recently with this debate over semiconductors, Taiwan produces the high-end versions of this, and it's very important that we protect that source of our supply chain. So it's really important she's there. I think doing otherwise and backing down would have been a sign of weakness at a time when China is increasingly aggressive in the whole Indo-China area. Other countries in the region are looking to us to provide leadership and certainly not to back down. And the Speaker has every right to go to Taiwan, just as we had the right to go there in April.
And you bring up a great point when you mention semiconductor production coming out of Taiwan, how important that is. China obviously has been warning, you can call it, threatening the United States if Pelosi were to make this trip. She did, in fact, take the long way as to not agitate China's military. But at the same time, you've got experts saying they might not necessarily take it out on the United States, China that is, but they may take their aggression out on Taiwan, trying to punish them in different ways.
Well, they've been punishing Taiwan as best they can in various ways, commercially, certainly in terms of disinformation, which is flooding the island. We saw some of the propaganda footage earlier of them, flexing their military muscle. So they've already been doing exercises in the Taiwan Straits. When we were there, they flew 6 fighter jets over the line of demarcation in the Straits. So they are continuing to do that. And by the way, it's not just about Taiwan. It's so many other things in the region that are concerning to people, what they are doing with regard to the South China Sea and on a coral reef, developing a military base. The Philippines will tell you that's one of those islands is theirs, and they're in a dispute over that. But also people are concerned about what's happening in Tibet, what's happening certainly in Hong Kong, and what's happening to the Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. So there are a number of issues that are concerning at a time when it's an increasingly dangerous and volatile part of the world because of the China aggression in the area. So it's not a time for us to be backing down. Instead, it's a time for us to talk to China, to ensure that they know we're not escalating, but also to talk to our neighbors and our friends, China's neighbors and our friends, our allies in the region, and they are increasingly looking to us for leadership.
And Senator Portman, that is a great point as well. This comes in the wake of many foreign policy blunders, if you will, by the Biden administration. And it's interesting the timing of this trip and that Nancy Pelosi is taking it, almost separating herself in some ways with the administration and taking a stance on this issue.
Well, it's true. If you saw the early responses from the administration, including from the president, as you saw, saying that they did not recommend it, I think instead they should not have been opposite of what Speaker Pelosi was saying. They should have been working together so that we can have a consistent foreign policy. And I do think in this case, Speaker Pelosi made the right call. And I think the trip will be quite productive.
And many agree with that as well. Please stay right there, Senator. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. Senator Rob Portman back with me now. Senator, your reaction to the latest developments on this spending bill. Right now, from a market perspective, we watch oil prices very closely. They've cratered to $94 a barrel because speculators are looking at some of the climate provisions in this bill. The energy provisions are substantial, $369 billion. Many people praising Joe Manchin because he was able to squash previous versions of larger spending bills, but some saying still this is not going to help the situation in this country with respect to inflation.
No, it won't. It's inflationary, and clearly by adding $326 billion in new tax hikes, we have a substantial tax increase on the American people, and there's no way to get around that. The Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation has said that half of that tax, $326 billion, comes out of manufacturers. They've also said that that tax gets passed along to workers and to customers. And how much of it gets passed along depends on what analysis you look at, but it's anywhere from 30% to 70% gets passed along to employees. And this is why they say that a number of Americans who didn't expect to get taxed, in effect, are going to be told, hey, your salary's going down, your benefits are going down because of this new tax. 50% of those people, by the way, or more, make less than $400,000 a year. So it's a tax that distributes to employees. It obviously will hurt consumers. And at a time of high inflation, why would we want that? Either a tax increase or a higher price for the goods that we buy. So it's a tax increase, and that to me is exactly the opposite thing to do right now. The Democrats have consistently put out policy, whether it was the $1.9 trillion bill that had so much stimulus in it that increased demand dramatically at a time when it wasn't needed, that helped cause the inflationary mismatch between demand and supply. Now this is going to, once again, hurt in terms of the supply side and make it harder for us to see investment in America, harder for us to build things, harder for us to have the ability to get out from under this inflationary spiral.
And I think there are a lot of hardworking Americans out there feeling the pinch of this inflation, looking at it as, in fact, a tax increase because it impacts their budgets, and they are questioning what exactly is going on here. Senator Portman, great to be with you today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right.